Well, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and let's get into it, my friends. Here we are sitting at about 93.3K. It is Monday, the 30th of December. We are in the very beginning hours of the day. We have 19 and a half hours left. We are at the base of this overall consolidation phase, and I know a lot of people are associating it with a head and shoulders pattern, right? That's the kind of outlook that we're getting here. I want to address that first and foremost, what my thoughts are on that. And I want to crush it before we even really get started. Is that I don't think this is a head and shoulders pattern, right? Head and shoulders patterns, and I've been doing this for 8 years, so just I've got a little bit of experience in these matters. You don't count this as the left shoulder, and then this is the head, and then that is the right shoulder, and then ignore the wick here and ignore the wick. You don't do that. Head and shoulders, there's plenty of patterns that allow for wicking outside of the scheme of the pattern, the structure of the pattern. There's plenty of them that allow for that. Head and shoulders patterns are not one of them, right? This, by all definitions, if this were to be a head and shoulders pattern, if you were considering it that way, then that would mean this was the top of your left shoulder, which would mean that you would have to draw your head and shoulders. This is your left shoulder. Here's your head. And your right shoulder would have to come up. It's not a head and shoulders unless it's a slanted head and shoulders, which it could be, but then you'd have slanted lows too, which you don't. In fact, your lows are actually higher lows throughout this whole time. We had a lower daily close here, but still higher lows overall. So it's not a head and shoulders pattern. The only thing about it to me that actually looks like a head and shoulders pattern is the volume. The volume's perfect in that sense. But other than that, I'm not expecting it to perform like a head and shoulders pattern. But let's say it does. Let's say, maybe this is your neckline. That's the top, right? So the measure move would essentially be from the highest point to the neckline there. If this was your measure move, if you were to break out of this bearishly and it were to be interpreted as a head and shoulders pattern, maybe you move down to about 80K, maybe you move down just below 80K, something like that. It's very possible. If we look at this overall fib here from a high to a low, from March to August, the highs in March to the lows in August that we had of this year, going down to about 80K, that's at 82.5K, the 1272 there. So, it could make sense. Going a little bit below 80K down to 73K, back testing the previous areas of resistance could make sense. I don't think that's going to happen at all because, again, I don't think this is a head and shoulders pattern. Even more so, I don't think it's going to happen because of how many people are, in my opinion, improperly interpreting this as a head and shoulders pattern, right? The more people that expect an outcome to occur, especially in this game, the less likely that outcome is going to happen. In fact, the more likely the opposite outcome would happen. So my thoughts are, no, we don't break out of this to the downside. And even if we do, I would doubt that we actually go down as low as whatever the projected target would be. I would suspect we hold support anywhere from about 90,000 to 85,000, somewhere in that range, probably 87. Close to there. If we were to go lower, and if we were to go lower, we would reverse just as quick as it happened, and we would probably continue out of this at the same pace that we came into it, right? We came into it with this pace from a low to a high. If we went all the way down to 88K, 87K from here, something like that. Let's say we went all the way down to 85K from here, 84.5K, whatever. We would still be able to, let's say that happened over the next week. We'd still be able to make a move up above 117,000 before halfway through January. If when we bounced, we saw the same pace of a move that we saw that brought us into this, right? So it's all I'm trying to say by that is not what I'm predicting is going to happen, just that if I'm wrong in assuming that we move up from here, if I'm wrong and we move down instead, that's fine. We can move down and still recover in a very short amount of time and be at new all-time highs in no time. So essentially by that, what I'm saying is I expect us to go up. Even if I'm wrong, it's not a big deal because you'll blink and then it'll be where we're projecting it to go anyways. So it's really not worth worrying about, right? I know a lot of people, and this is why I don't like to brag if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Sometimes when we're on a hot streak, I'll brag about it. Sometimes if I'm on a cold streak, I'll make fun of myself, right? Of course we'll do that, but I don't like to talk or brag about that too much because you will inevitably be wrong and you will inevitably be right? And that's the issue. That's the issue of the mentality of the crypto space of investors and speculators right now. Is there's so many people here. You're on one faction or the other. It has to go up. It has to go down. It's like, well, it's going to do one of those other ones, like one of those things. Why put any emotion to it? Why put all this stress? If you're one of the people that thinks it's going to go up, you're going to put all this emotional pressure. If it goes down, you're going to feel like this punch in the gut. There's no stress. There's no need for that. There's no worry, because by the time it goes down, man, it's going to come back up in no time. We'll be at new all-time highs well before the inauguration even. So there's no need to put that kind of stress, that kind of, it will not go lower, it has to go up from here. It doesn't have to go up. It can go down. I don't think it's going to go down. I do think we're going to move up. That's my call, but no pressure, right? Because again, and this is why I don't brag, because like whatever, I'm right, because even if I do get a hot streak, I'm going to be wrong, and I could be wrong here. I'm calling for it to go up. I could be wrong. And if I put pressure on that, not that I would put pressure on it, but that could mess with people's emotions. If I'm like, it has to hold the line here, it will bounce. If we get any other outcome, what about all the people who are watching this that are counting on that? What about me who's counting on that, right? That can have an emotionally negative side effect. And if you're counting on it just to go down, it has to go down. There's no other way. It has to go down. It looks like this. And then it goes up. You're doing the same thing to yourself. Why put yourself in that position? Why be so combative, so tribal about one way or the other? It's Bitcoin. It's crypto. We're in the post-halving breakout. Trump's about to get inaugurated. We're about to have a very crypto-friendly administration. There's a lot of beneficial things happening for the entire space in the year of 2025, or at least so it seems to be set up that way, regardless of what we do in the coming days. By the end of January, we'll be at new all-time highs. By the end of January, we'll be at 120 to 130K. So I'm going to end the video on that note, just with the perspective of who really cares what happens today, tomorrow, over the next week, over the next weeks, plural, over the next months, plural. We're going to be moving up. We're going to be moving up a lot. So I do want to end the video with a couple of things, and then with a couple of side notes, I guess, or main notes. And then we'll end the video. Okay, so the things that I want to talk about are where I expect the price to go over the coming days. Okay, which personally for me, I would expect that we're at above $102,000 by the end of this week. Okay, it is the beginning of a new week, so within the next 6 days, I suspect we'll be above 102,000. I'm going to take it even a step further, and I'm going to guess by the 3rd of January that we're up there, right? That would be by the end of the stock week there on Friday. So I think that we will be above 102. Any close above 102,000 to me would really cement this area as a low. Getting above the 618, the golden ratio, closing above there, that would really cement this as a low to me. And then of course, if we were to reject, we need to find support at these higher fib levels, and that's fine. The further away that we progress, the more obvious that will be a low. And then once we get above about 106.4 thousand, so $106,400, that'll green light us effectively to the next target areas, which are anything from 113K and above. The true technical next target area when we are ready to move higher is going to be about 123,000 to 142,000. It's a zone, 123 to 142. With specific emphasis really on both of those numbers, but I do suspect we'll break above 123 by the end of January. I don't think we'll be at prices above 142 by the end of January, but I would love it if I'm wrong on that. The higher the better, I suppose. And there's one last perspective that I want to offer besides just the normal stuff. Okay, so hit that like button, subscribe, guys, and let's finish this up real quick. Here we are. So looking at it here, looking at Bitcoin on the index. This month has 1 day and 20 hours left. We are down 3.1% right now. Okay, it's looking like December might close as a red month. And if it does, that's okay, right? But we've got 1 day and 20 hours left. I kind of hope it is a red month because we've come all this way. I would hate for it to close to be a green month. Why would I hate for it to close to be a green month? I'll show you. We'll go through here on Bitcoin's very first bull cycle, okay? Very first one. We'll go from the all-time high, which was absolutely a green month, but the all-time high of this cycle. We're going to go back 13 months. 13 months here. You can see for 13 months we were moving up, and in that 13 months we had 1, 2, 3 red months. And actually this red month here was actually up 3%. So actually it's only 2 red months that we had. 2. That one says, you can see it says plus 3% right there, plus 3%. It says red, but we had a gap and it closed still higher than where this candle preceding it closed. So really in this 13-month period, you had 11 out of 13 months that were green. You do the same thing from the cycle end here, 13 months before. Okay, we're going to do 13 months. 13 months there. Out of these 13 months, 1, 2, 3 months were red. The rest were green. So 11 out of 13 were green the first cycle. 10 out of 13 were green the last cycle. You get why I want December to be red, right? If not, we'll just stay tuned, right? 13 months here. We go from the top there, 13 months back, and obviously it was running for all of these. Obviously the cycle lasted longer than 13 months. Maybe this one not too much longer, but obviously they all do. But I'm talking about specifically the last year and a month, 13 months of the cycle. I got the number 13 from another analysis that I did, right? It was from something else, but I'm just running with it now. 13 months. Out of these 13 months, how many of them were red? Three, one of which was pretty neutral, didn't even close a percent red, so arguably really only 2 months were red. Okay, but 3. 10 out of 13 months green, 10 out of 13 months green, 11 out of 13 months green for the end of the cycle, right? That's the whole purpose. What's the end of the bull cycle look like? What's this last year and a month of the bull cycle look like? Here's the end of this bull cycle, okay? Now, this one's debatable. A lot of people would say the end of the bull cycle was here. Some people would say it's here where the all-time high is. And a lot of people, they'll do this thing where it's like, I say this is the high. This was the high of the cycle. No, but this was the high. No, don't, like, let's be honest. Let's be genuine. This absolutely was the high, but this absolutely was the end of the cycle, right? This was not the high. I don't care how many indicators are saying this was the high. The indicators are wrong, and they can be wrong. The indicators were wrong. That was not the high. But the indicators are right in the sense that this was the end of the cycle. It wasn't the high, but it was the end of the cycle, okay? Just like here, this right here, this month was the end of the bear cycle, but it wasn't the beginning of the bull cycle. That would have been this low over here, right? You can't, if that's obvious, then obviously this was the high, but this was the end of the bull cycle. If we're doing this whole thing where we're measuring 13 months from the high each cycle, but technically the end of the cycle. Let's do this real quick. From the end of this cycle, we go back 13 months, and yet again, it's just, you can't stop it, man. 13 months in a row to the upside, basically, from this month here. 1, 2, 3 months were red. This 4th month here was also red. Okay. And on that 4th month, on that last month that was red, that's where we actually found the high of the end of the cycle. So even though it was red, it was only red like 1%, we still grew in that month, okay? But 11 out of 13, 10 out of 13, 10 out of 13, and here 9 out of 13 months were green for the last 13 months of the bull cycle. Nobody knows when the bull cycle is going to end, right? We're all projecting. We're all expecting it to end somewhere between, I mean, some people think April, some people think sooner than that. Most people think April or later, really. Some people think December, okay? Some people think later than that, but something in between this is what most of the market thinks, right? Most of the market. If we were to be in the last 13 months now, let's say it was from April. Well, if we go to 13 months, I don't know about you guys, but this square of last 13 months, I mean, hey, 1, 2, 3, 4 red months. If we had the next 1, 2, 3, 4 months were green, okay, maybe in that sense, 4 months red out of the last 13 months. We've seen that before, okay? But the thing is, this last 13-month period here would be the least like any of these last 13-month periods we've seen before. We've never seen a 13-month period like this where 7 or more of those months were just sideways consolidating. That to me doesn't make sense. So I would argue or promote the idea that maybe it's closer to December. Maybe it's not December. Maybe it's somewhere in between. I personally like October. I think that's when the Bitcoin bull cycle is going to end. It's October. If it's October, then that could imply that the 13 months that we have for the end of the cycle could have started in September, of which we have our first red month now. The reason why I want this month to close red in the next day and 20 hours, we're down 3% this month, so I hope we don't get a bounce over the next day and 20 hours. I hope really we just chill, but I think we will get a bounce. Unfortunately, I think we will. We'll probably be above 102K. Well, maybe not in the next day and 20 hours, but over the next 4 or 5 days, I think we will be. It's hard to say. I would like a red month because we're basically guaranteed to have 3 of them. if not 4 of them, if not at least 2. So if we can get 1 out of the way now, likely we're going to see more growth afterwards, right? Last cycle, whenever we had a red month, that one there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months of green in a row, right? The time before that we had a red month, it was at least 2 months of green in a row. The time before that, we started it off with a red month, 2 months of green in a row. The cycle before, 1 month red there, we had a quarter of a year of green. The time before that, we had 6 months in a row of green. The time before that, at least 1 month in a row, or one month of green, and then we continued to move up. It was like a month and a half of moving up, right? Cycle before that, we did consolidate for 2 months here. Okay, we got 2 red months in a row, but that's kind of uncommon. But still, afterwards, immaculate growth for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And then going back here, obviously we grew. I'm just trying to say, if we close this month red, likely the next 3 months will probably be green or more. Three months or more would be green. It's possible that we could close 2 months in a row red, but the more red months we get out of the way, the sooner within this last 13-month period, the more likely we're going to have just green on green on green, right? So I personally, and also just looking at this kind of perspective, this video went on way longer than I meant for it to, but looking at this perspective, if we were to expect April to be the end, or March, anything earlier than April, it just to me seems less and less likely that this would be a 13-month period of the end of the cycle, right? I don't think that we're at that yet. It doesn't look anything like these last 13 months movements that we've seen going through, right? They don't have this 7-month period where we're just moving sideways. That doesn't happen. It's basically just nonstop to the upside with 3 or 4 months of red, right? But I think I've made my point. I got nothing else to say. All that to say, right, I thought that was interesting. That's kind of why I wanted to bring it up in this video, is that I don't think that the cycle is going to end early next year. I think it will be late next year. I think we're just getting things started. It'd be nice if this month could close red, but if it closes green, whatever, it's fine. That doesn't throw anything off, right? It's totally fine. But I don't know if I have anything else that I want to say, so I'm just going to end it there, guys. Expecting that we have a low here. I don't expect that we go lower. If we do go lower, it's going to not matter at all, because as soon as we get down there, we're going to come back up rather immediately. But I do expect that we'll just move up from here, because personally I don't think this is a head and shoulders pattern. I think it's being interpreted improperly. Sometimes we get improper interpretations and we still move down in the way that people are interpreting. But with all this movement down, with how aggressive this most recent move down was overall, and how lackluster the volume was, I can't help but think we're just going to reverse that easily and then break out of this probably over the coming week. So that's all I got. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.